Hey guys, my friends, welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about how helicopters fly, right? Helicopters are incredibly complex machines. They don't need a runway, and they have a huge history behind them. And it started all the way back in 400 CE when a little Chinese book, right, that described a flying top. If you spin it quickly between your hands, it has feathers attached to it with sticks, and it'll spin like a helicopter to the ground. And next, we have a very important milestone in the history of helicopters. Leonardo da Vinci, the painter who painted Mona Lisa, he designed a helicopter with corkscrew-shaped propeller blades to lift it up through the air, but he never got to building it. Then Sir George Cayley built a spring elastic models of helicopters that fly to like tens of meters. But then Thomas Edison also had a try on it. He experimented with model helicopters, including some driven by electricity. And then here comes the first attempt, which will later lead to the successful attempt. Igor Sikorsky, a Russian aircraft engineer, builds himself a working helicopter model powered by a rubber band, and it would soon be the beginning of a life's obsession with helicopters. Then after many years, Igor Sikorsky designs and patents a practical working helicopter. He finally builds and flies a version of it, the VS-300, in 1939. And then in 1942, Sikorsky's R4 becomes the world's first mass-produced helicopter. And then fast forward all the way back to towards 1981. Then the NOTAR, the no-tail rotor, is tested for the first time in Hughes OH-6A. And that's the one where it has a tail rotor fixed in the tail for safety purposes. And then that's just the tip of the iceberg on the very rich history of helicopters, and they are very, very complex inside and out. And Igor Sikorsky took a lot of time in patenting it and developing his model. Now let's get more into the helicopter. They contain these main parts. They have, and I'm going to explain to you the use of each of them. We have the rotor mast, the cockpit, and the landing skids, the tail boom, the engine, transmission, fuel, etc., which is located right in the lower body of the helicopter. Then we have the tail rotor, the main rotor blade, and that's it. So we're gonna explain the uses of these. Now the rotor, the main rotor, is the one that helps you to propel. And as you can see, they're rotated in an angle, and the angle changes with the help of a technology called swash plates, and they bend only one rotor in one angle. And look closely at the shape of the rotor. It uses the same airfoil technology I talked about during the airplane video. And that's what helps it to lift through, vertical lift. And when it has total lift, it does one thing called hovering. When it bends over slightly, because one rotor is at a different angle than others, it makes it to tilt forward. And now the thrust is going in a sideways motion, therefore pushing it forward. And these are just the main parts of the rotors and what they do. These are the key parts of a helicopter. Now you may have noticed that there is a tail rotor spinning, and let me tell you why. You know the rotor, right? It spins. And as you know, we are all familiar with Newton's third law of motion, which is what there is an equal and opposite force for every action. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Very easy. And as this spins in one direction, the helicopter also spins in the other. To counteract this, we have the tail rotor, and it's put in the very end to give it for less thrust, more effect. It counterbalances that so that the helicopter doesn't spin around, and pilots use this to their advantage. And when they turn it off, it moves off to one side, and when they overpower it, it moves to the other, helping them to do the motion known as yaw. YAW, which means just to tilt it rather than to tilt sideways, to tilt left and right. Talking of pilots, let's see what goes on in the insides of the helicopter. Let's take a look at the cockpits. Now, you can see the parts labeled in numbers 1, 2, and 3. You can see just like that there are foot pedals, which are known as the anti-torque pedals. They control the, you guessed it, tail rotor, and they help the helicopter to do the yaw motion. Then we have the cyclic pitch lever, which helps to do the helicopter movement, vertical lift, hover, and so on and so forth. Then you have the collective pitch lever, and then that helps it to do basically the normal functions of a helicopter, throttle up and down and so on and so forth. That is what, these are the basic controls for the helicopter. And the things that you see in the middle are basically communication, strobe lights, so on and so forth. And these are what make this incredibly complicated machine. And the main advantage with this one is that you don't need a one-way, and it's used on yachts because you can easily land it and easily take off. And there have been several attempts. There are many more, and I've given you the most important attempts. And Igor Sikorsky finally succeeded, and after many years of research, he was the only one who was able to invent and properly patent a working model of the helicopter. And now it's changing ways that we travel. They're the main source of transport for safaris and so on. And basically, the differences between the helicopter and the aeroplane, right? So in the helicopter, the wings, the rotors, I'm just comparing them. So they're the wings, right? They're pushing the air down. So they themselves are pushing the air down because only the wings are moving. So now in the plane itself moves to push the air on the wing. So that's difference number one. And then the aeroplane's main source of thrust is forward. But the helicopter's main source of thrust is upward. And then, if you want to ride an aeroplane, it's much less complicated relatively, because each of these jobs are very hard. But here, the pilot, when riding or piloting the helicopter, a pilot may have to do one, two, or three actions at the same time, controlling the cyclic pitch lever, you have the collective pitch lever, all of them at the same time, the cyclic pitch lever, the foot pedals, and the collective pitch lever, all at all the same time. It gets incredibly complicated. And then even in the plane, you have a lot to check. And so relatively, the helicopter is harder and more complicated to control. And there are different types of helicopters, like choppers, which have like two different bisections, and they have one rotor each. They are used for military operations, mainly used by USA, but it's also used by other countries. And the helicopter is a wonderfully complex machine, really. It's taken many years of hard work. It has evolved from a simple, humble flying machine to a very, very complicated flying machine. And it's just like the aeroplane. They're basically different. They both fly, but there are a lot of differences between them. Like, for example, the aeroplanes need to be sleek and aerodynamic because they have to move the air through. They go through the air. They force the air to move upon them. But the helicopters, they take the air and push it down. And what causes that is the movement of the wings themselves independent to the body of the helicopter. But the planes, the whole body moves through the air. So these are the main basic differences between helicopters and aeroplanes. Both of them are incredibly complex, and it's very, very incredible, and it's taken decades of research, and all of this they just show how powerful humans are and why we are probably the only intelligent species in the whole universe. And this was a really interesting topic to cover. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed this, and please be sure to subscribe to see more content like this. And I hope you guys enjoyed this and this was informational, and see you guys in another video. Bye.